Hey everybody, Quantum back here again with a deck profile video for our latest Ruby Amber gameplay from set 4. This deck turned out to be a lot better than I expected. It worked very well, and in this video I'm going to attempt to break down why I think this deck is actually a meta contender and what makes it strong against certain meta matchups. So before we get started, I just want to say that these videos, these deck profiles usually come out early for members. So you can join the YouTube channel. It's like $2.99 a month if you want to support the channel and get early access to this stuff. I usually will make it public though to everybody like a day or two later. But again, it's just a way to thank the supporters of the channel by giving them early access to these deck profiles. So thank you again to all the members. But with that out of the way, let's go ahead and break down the deck. So to start off, I've opted to include 3 Cinderellas. You could cut this for like the Simbas. In this video, I think I was using the Simbas and not the Cinderellas. The reason why you might want to play this is if you wanted to add on Teeth and Ambitions in this deck as well. So you'd have two options to sing either Bare Necessities or Teeth and Ambitions. And the reason you would want to do that is if you're really seeing a lot of Emerald, because Teeth and Ambitions takes care of a lot of the Emerald cards that are played early on. So if you like turn 1 drop Cinderella, turn 2 drop a Snow White, you can Teeth and Ambitions damage the Snow White lives. Or if you sing Teeth and Ambitions on turn 3, when you drop a Julieta, maybe like turn 1 Cinderella, turn 2 Mulan or Mother Gothel, turn 3 Julieta to heal, and then draw a card. Sing Teeth and Ambitions, damage the Julieta. It's a 1/4 body, so it can take the 2 damage. And Teeth and Ambitions deals, like I said, with a lot, right? It can deal with the Cursed Merfolk, it can deal with the Flynn Rider, it can deal with the Diablo. So all early game meta threats from Emerald, as well as a number of other meta threats from other colors. But that's primarily the reason why you might want to run Cinderella if you want to include Teeth and Ambitions. Singing the Bare Necessities also on turn 2 is just a really strong interaction, especially if you're up against the Sapphire decks where they don't usually have a turn 1 character. If you drop a turn 1 character and you're able to sing that to rip out like a Fishbone Quill or 1 jump ahead and slow down their ramp, that can be very beneficial as well. The real package in the early and mid game though fall between the Ruby cards that come into play with damage. There's 12 of them in total, 4 Mulans, 4 Mother Gothel. That's, this was the OG one, but also the new card that we also got in Ursula's Returnal along with the Mulan is the Beast Wounded, where you play 4 copies of. This card, at a 3 cost 2/6 body that comes into play with 4 damage on quest for 2 is absolutely insane when you're able to drop this with the Rapunzel. So this card from chapter 1 I think has really gone up in terms of value. It's good in a lot of different decks, and Amber I think is playing this as a staple no matter what you pair Amber with, right? Whether it's Steel, Ruby, Amethyst, as we saw from the Lorcana challenge, whatever it might be. I think stocks of Rapunzel are going way, way up in my opinion. But what's nice is, you have the option to draw 3 off the Mother Gothel, and you now have the option to draw 3 off the Beast. What's even more crazy is, if you do heal up 3 damage, this card, it would take 5 strength being thrown into it in order to take it out. And this card is a threat. It quests for 2 on turn 3, which means you play this on turn 4. So you play this on turn 3, you drop Rapunzel on turn 4, let's say, heal it up, and then you start questing for 2, and it's hard for your opponent to out this. And while the strength stat is very underwhelming for sure, having them throw multiple characters into this, putting damage on their own cards, means it's just easier for you to throw stuff into it to clean it up afterwards, right? And that's what you saw in this gameplay video, where we were on the draw for a good portion of our matches. And because I play overstated bodies in these Ruby cards, because their drawback is they come into play with damage, but they have overstated stat lines in terms of strength and willpower, they're able to take out threats on the board and stay on the board themselves. Yes, they might have some damage on them, but because you also play the 12 healing cards on the Amber side on the 2, 3, and 4 curve, the 2 curve being the Snow White, remove 2 damage. On the 3 curve, the new Julieta Madrigal. I was calling this card Isabel, but yeah, that's incorrect. The name is Julieta. Beautiful name, by the way. But yeah, this card comes into play, remove up to 2 damage, and draw a card if you do remove damage. It's a 1/4 body for 3 that quests for 1/2. Very good, replaces itself, kind of like what Maleficent Sorceress does, which is very strong. And then, of course, the OP, original, legendary from the first chapter, Rapunzel, just netting you a whole bunch of cards. This card can single-handedly win you the game against this card, in my opinion, because they spend so many resources to try to discard your hand. Being able to drop this and draw 3, like you saw it against this discard match that I went up against an Emerald Amber deck, where they had 3 cards in hand. They had 2 understated cards on board because the discard cards, they have lower strength and willpower because they have effects that discard. And I had the stronger board, and I just drew 3 off of the Rapunzel. They had 3 cards in hand, then I just refilled my hand with 3 cards as well. And it's like all that work to discard my hand is kind of thrown out the window when I Rapunzel. And then I just out your board because I have the stronger characters that are able to clean up your board. So now you're just left with a smaller hand, no board state, and you have underwhelming characters to play. It's like, how do you come back once I start getting to the mid to top end of my deck, where we'll get into in a second? That's where this deck really can start to dominate. But you see why in the early game and how we're able to maybe claw back some tempo, because we're able to take out the opponent's threats and force them to react to our board that's still established after we out their board, because we're taking out their understated cards with our overstated cards once we've healed them up. And so it's not too much of an ask to get these combos off, because like I said, you play 12 of these self-damage cards and then 12 of the healing cards. So any combination of these things are very easy to see in the early game, especially when you mulligan for certain pieces, and it's very strong in that regard. So that's how the early game usually will play out. And again, you have some tech options like the Cinderella and Teeth if you want to play that, or Bare Necessities, to maintain some form of control in addition to just managing the board state, so that's nice. In my opinion, it's a very nice early game package. As you move to the mid-range, we all know how powerful Maui is in order to control boards and out big threats, so that is a staple of the deck. But I want to talk about this kind of standalone engine in the Aerial Singer. Not only is this a 4-cost inkable 3/3 body that quests for 2, which is in and of itself a decent overall stat line, this Singer 7 is actually pretty relevant for 2 reasons. Being paired with Ruby, of course, we can play some Be Prepared. So in a tight situation, if you are able to drop the Aerial and you're able to get into a Be Prepared, either drawing into it or holding it in your hand, and it's doesn't get ripped out of your hand by an Ursula Deceiver, because there are more decks than just Emerald in the meta. But this card just being able to be sung by this Aerial is a massive. We all know how powerful Be Prepared is when it's able to be sang. I don't know if sung is not a word, right? So it has to be like it's been sang or is being sung. No, I don't know. Anyways, when you're able to maintain your ink, like let's say on turn 5 you sing Be Prepared with this Aerial, you wipe the board, and then you're able to follow up turn 5 with like, I don't know, a Beast and a Snow White or something. Like, that's very strong because you potentially out some very big threats from the opponent. You maintain board control because you're able to follow up with characters, and that's how a card like Be Prepared is able to be a massive tempo swinging card. So not only are you able to swing tempo in the early game when you're on the draw, you're also able to swing it mid game potentially by setting up this powerful sing with Be Prepared. Hard casting Be Prepared never feels good. Like, sometimes it's mandatory, but it spends your turn, and it's not a tempo resetting card in that instance. Same like Whole New World, right? You get the tempo reset with a Whole New World when it's sung or sang, whatever the whatever's an actual word there. But you never see Amber Steel Song players hardcasting a Whole New World. They always want to sing it because they know if they hardcast it, it's actually them who's at the disadvantage. You have to sing it in order for you to gain the advantage off of it, usually. So it's the same thing for Be Prepared, and this card just enables you to do that. We all know how powerful board wiping can be, and in this deck, like I said, again, and if you saw this gameplay video, we were Be Prepared, we were Sisu'd, wiped, and we're able to just redevelop our board, because this deck can play into those board clears because you have an established way to draw cards. That means that if you are expecting the board wipe, you are just able to redevelop your board. You're able to play around discard to a certain degree because it's fine, like discard my hand, I'll just draw more cards if I keep my key pieces in hand and I have multiple damage characters on board that I'm either throwing into your cards to damage them after I've healed them, or they're just sitting there with damage on them waiting to be Rapunzel or Juliet or whatever it might be. And another thing that's interesting here that is a really good I guess I don't want to call it like a tempo card necessarily, but like I think Snow White continues to be a really underrated option. And so after seeing what Joshua did at the Lorcana challenge with Perdita, which did get worse, right? Because now we have Brawl and the 3-drop Sisu that outs a 1-strength character. When that makes Perdita worse, obviously, but Snow White dodges both of those cards. I mean, yes, this could get Ice Block down to 1 strength technically, and this does still get outed by Medusa, and this does still get Zeused, but in my experience and playing it against other decks, like just shifting this and questing, getting back a Rapunzel or something is very strong. Of course, if you don't like that, you could cut these for the Hades, because just getting a one-time Rapunzel back to hand is in and of itself very, very strong. But having this 2-quester on board that's a 3/5 body is a bit of an issue too. Your opponent has to answer this because the advantage this card generates, the fact that it gets back cards that you're able to replay to heal and draw more cards, like you can just like this package is insane in and of itself. Recurring this package is just insane when you think about it, right? Like, yeah, you out my Beast, I'll just get it back off to Snow White, drop it again, and then play Rapunzel, right, and draw 3. It's like, holy crap, I can't beat that. That's too much advantage that you just generated right there, right? So this card, I think, is interesting, but again, if it's too technical, like it's too niche to say like, oh, I have to shift it, it's too hard to set up, you could opt for the Hades instead. And then on the top end, of course, you do play the Madame Medusa. This continues to be one of the strongest cards in the meta, so having access to this, along with 4 copies of Brawl, just makes this deck very resilient. This card is something you want to aggressively mulligan for in certain matchups, mainly the Emerald matchups, because being able to out any number of big threats, right? Anything from like the 1 to 3 cost curve that Emerald plays is very relevant. Mainly the Diablo and Ursula Deceiver of all is very relevant. And then later on in the game, you can depend on your Medusa for cleaning things up, so that's very nice. And again, against the control matchups, you play Ruby, so you play some of the best top end in the game with the Maleficent Dragons. You saw me drop this to close out a game against the Ruby Sapphire player. And of course, you also have the Be Prepared for tempo resetting board wipes. What's also interesting is the Stitch Carefree Surfer is a very powerful option in this deck, in my opinion. I think this card is also very underrated. Amazing to see both of the legendaries from Chapter 1, in my opinion, just coming into their own again in Ursula's Return. A 4/8 body. This thing dodges Medusa. It dodges Zeus. It dodges all of the effective removal without having its stats modulated. It comes into play. It draws you 2 cards and it quests for 2. It's just an insanely powerful body. It's very hard to out. And yeah, it just nets you pure advantage. So I would like to play more of this if possible, but again, just the fact that it's inkable, if it's not useful in this situation, you just ink it. Maybe you have better options to play to draw cards or something, and that's what you value more. But you can just see developing this overstated early game board that is going to be questing for a lot. Look at your 3 and 4 drops. This quest for 2, this quest for 2, this quest for 2, this quest for 2. This is for 1, but it has removal, and these 2 quests for 2 as well. You have a good removal package in the Be Prepared and the Brawls, along with the Madame Medusas. You challenge things. You can run into things with these overstated bodies on the Ruby side as well. And then again, you have the Aerial to essentially get you out of a tough situation. What's also very interesting is the Amber Ruby deck used to always kind of live and die by finding Rapunzel, and this card being able to be sang by Aerial in and of itself to get you closer to the Rapunzel, or just get you the Rapunzel that you need in hand in order to generate that massive advantage, is huge in my opinion. So I really come to like this card after kind of not being too hyped up on it upon release, but just seeing how it works, either singing with the Aerial or singing with a combination of other cards, is just proven to be really impactful. This card just being able to dig for an answer, right? Maybe you need a Maui, maybe you want to dig for the Snow White, so you can shift it onto the Snow White. It's just like singing this with the Aerial on turn 5, and then just getting the piece that you need on the top end in order to kind of maintain dominance of the board is quite remarkable. Again, if you watch the gameplay video, you kind of see that play out. We're able to out the opponent's board, maintain our board. Now they feel like they've lost control of the tempo, and they have to react to our board as a result. So that's kind of why the deck, I think, works fairly well. I think that more or less explains everything, or all the card choices. Like I said, there are a lot of tech options you can use. There's different ways you can build this deck. You could cut all of this stuff and run a 60-character Mufasa version still, of course. That's still a viable option. But I just really like the versatility that this deck offers you. And like I said, it's proven to be very effective for me. But more testing is needed, as usual, right? We need larger sample sizes. But if you've used this deck, let me know. Let me know what you think. Is it strong? Is it not strong for you? What challenges are you running into with it? What's also nice is it only plays 9 uninkables. Yes, it is some of the more top-end uninkables in the Medusa and the Be Prepared, and then the Snow White. So yeah, it's all top-end uninkable. So if you do draw like 3 of these out of the 9 in your opening hands, and you probably just lose the game. But that's very unlikely statistically, right? Because you do play 51 inkables, so this deck is usually very easy to play on curve. It has a number of cards in both the 1, 2, and 3 drop slots, and 4 drops, so you should be able to curve out quite nicely usually and mulligan for all the pieces that you need. And because of that, it's very easy to kind of maintain tempo, whereas your opponent, on these other weird decks might struggle with that. For example, on these heavier control decks, you saw that Ruby Sapphire player had like the Lucky Diamond in their opening hand, and it's like, I can't do anything with this for like several turns, right? So this deck is nice for that reason. You curve out nicely. You don't mind discarding characters because you can get the back with Snow White and or Hades if you opt to play that instead. And it just seems like a very well-rounded deck, and it's worked for me. So that's going to go ahead and wrap up the deck profile. Hopefully I didn't speak too fast for you guys. Let me know in the comment section below if you made it this far, if you did enjoy this. Thank you again for watching. Make sure you drop a like if you did enjoy it though. Quantum is out.